So let us go ahead and let us have a look at the first question. Which of the following correctly describes the components of AD? So we know that AD can be written as C plus I plus G plus X minus M, right? C plus I plus G plus NX. So if you go ahead and look at the option number B, that is the correct option because it does X minus M. So it does C plus I plus G plus X minus M. So B is the correct option. You can go ahead, you can have a look at the option. B will be the correct answer to this question. Let us go ahead and move on to the second question. Which of the following formulas is correctly stated? So this is the relationship between I, R, and pi. And we know that the correct relationship that we have is actually I is equal to R plus pi. That is the correct relationship that we have, right? So on that basis, if I look at the options, we would know that this option B is correct. I is equal to R plus pi. This is the correct option. But come to the third part. Which of the following would not affect the size of real GDP? So when we talk about real GDP is not, actually GDP itself is not affected whenever you have the sale of any second-hand commodity, right? So sale of new car, nahi. But look at the D option, consumer purchase of a rare Renaissance painting. Yes, that is not going to go ahead and affect the real GDP of your economy. So D is the correct option. Come to the next question. If an autonomous increase in spending in an economy of 100 leads to increase in real GDP of 500, then for that economy, the marginal propensity to consume will be. तो बेटा यहाँ पे marginal propensity to consume निकालना है, and it says that increase in spending is 100 and it leads to change in GDP by 500. So beta, if I just look at this, we know that change in Y due to change in G can be written as 1 upon 1 minus C. Change in Y is 500. Change in G is 100. So this becomes 1 upon 1 minus C. So 5 is equal to 1 upon 1 minus C. So 1 minus C will be 1 by 5, reciprocated. So C will be 1 minus 1 by 5, which will be 4 by 5. So 4 by 5 beta is 0.80. So answer to this question is 4 by 5. That's A is the correct answer. I hope this is clear. Come to the next question. If the government increased spending by 100 and increased taxes by 10 to pay for the increased spending, then which of the following combination would correctly explain the effect of budget and GDP? So beta, what is happening? G is increasing by 10 and T is also increasing by 10. G and T are both increasing by 10. So beta, if G and T increase by the same amount, it is called balanced budget. So what will be the impact on the budget? Budget is change in B, is change in G minus change in T. But when both change by the same amount, budget will not be affected. So budget will be unchanged. But a balanced budget says that when you increase G and T by some amount, then budget, output also increases by the same amount. So value of balanced budget is 1. Change in output is equal to change in G is equal to change in T. So GDP will increase. कितने से? जितने से G increase हो रहा है, जितने से T increase हो रहा है. So GDP will increase by 1 beta, but GDP will increase. Change in GDP, multiplier will be 1, right? So answer to this question should be E, that budget will be unchanged, but GDP will increase. So answer should be E. So E is the correct option to this question. Okay, come to the next question. It says if 100 deposit in a bank leads to 1,000 increase in money supply, reserve requirement must have been. So basically it says that your how much are you depositing money, beta? Deposit is 100 and money supply is changing by 1,000. So how do we define the multiplier? We know that multiplier is 1 by RR, 1 by reserve ratio. And what is multiplier? How money supply changes when deposit change. So money supply is changing by 1,000, deposit by 100. So this is 10 beta. So 1 by RR is 10. So what will be your reserve ratio? 1 by 10. So your reserve ratio will be 1 by 10. But notice that in question number 6, they have given everything in percentage. So I have to convert this in terms of percentage. I can convert anything in terms of percentage by multiplying it by 100. So this is going to give me 10%. So answer to this question will be 10%. That is A. A is the correct answer to this question. Okay, better come to the next question. Long run economic growth in a country would be encouraged through which of the following events? Let me just erase this. Till then, just keep trying it yourself. Okay. So it says long run economic growth of a country would be encouraged by which set of events? Okay. So when I talk about, when I have to go ahead and grow, I want that my investment should be high. But when will investment be high? Only when there is low interest rate. And investment can only be high in the background when you have high savings. So the correct option of question number 7 is E. You should have high investment, low interest rate, and high savings in the economy. Only then you can have a long run growth rate in your economy. Okay, come to the next question. Which of the following people would be considered structurally unemployed? So what is structural unemployment? When you lose a job because you don't have the required skill. Like if I don't know how to use computer, right, and I lose a job, then that is structural unemployment. So beta, structural unemployment, according to this, just read out the option. First says unemployed auto assembly line factory worker during recession. No. Unemployed auto assembly line worker who has replaced with a robot. That can be structural unemployment. So answer to question number 8 is B. So you are not quitting your job. So C cannot be correct. Right? You are not losing your job because it is summer or winter. Nahi. You are losing your job because some better skilled individual or robot has replaced you. So when you're replaced by someone who is more skillful, that is structural unemployment. So answer should be B. Okay, come to the next question. Which contribution of events described below would be the most expansionary for an economy, assuming they all happened at the same time? So if I want to talk about growing my economy, right? So my economy can grow only when consumption increases. AD is C plus I plus G plus NX. Na? So I can increase consumption when taxes are low. So taxes should decrease. I can increase consumption when I can increase AD when G increases. Okay, so G should increase. Then beta, I can increase AD if NX increases. Right? So if I look at these three options, I would know from here that the correct option should be A. The correct option to question 9 should be A. Taxes should decrease, government spending should increase, net export should increase, and reserve requirement should decrease. But when there are less reserves, there is more money supply. More money in the economy means more demand. That is how you can ensure that this is going to be the correct answer. So answer to this question is 9, is A. So now let us go to the next question. This says, in an economy, if an economy is suffering from inflation, what fiscal policy measures could be taken to help alleviate the problem? So if my economy is facing inflation, okay, which fiscal policy measure should be taken? Okay, see beta, if I increase money supply, then demand will increase. If demand will increase, then inflation will increase. So A cannot be the correct option. Better come to the next option. If I increase G, demand will increase. Demand will increase, inflation will increase. Cannot be the correct option. Come to the next option, beta. Increasing taxes. Haan, sahi hai. When you increase tax, consumption decreases. When consumption decreases, demand decreases. If demand decreases, inflation decreases. So answer to question 10 should be C. C is the correct option. Okay, come to the next question. Which of the following would be appropriate monetary policy measure to combat inflation? So I want to go ahead and I want to reduce inflation. Okay, abhi humne dekh liya, you can go ahead and increase taxes. That will help you to reduce inflation. But beta, tax is a fiscal policy. Thoda sa tricky hai. Tax is a fiscal policy. And the question is asking you about the monetary policy. That can only happen through open market operation or reserve ratios. So beta, please A mat mark karna. Question is about monetary policy. Now you want to go ahead and you want to reduce inflation in the economy. That is possible if you reduce the amount of money that people hold. So reduce money supply in the economy. But how can you reduce money supply in the economy? By selling bonds. When you sell bond to people, in return you get money from people. So money in the economy reduces. खुद सोचो, जब bonds बेचोगे, तो return में लोगों से पैसा मिलेगा. जो economy में money है वो कम हो जाएगा. So money supply in the economy will reduce. So answer to this question should be C, sell bonds. Okay, beta, come to the next question. Based on figure 1, a movement from C0 to C2 in both diagrams would be consistent with which of the following? Okay, so you are going from C0 to C2, beta. You are going from C0 to C2 and it says which of the following would be correct in this case. I think I missed out what should be written on the y-axis. But still, let us try to think what can be the answer to this question. So if you go ahead, this is all about taxes, huh? If you go ahead and you reduce the taxes in the economy, consumption should increase. So consumption curve will shift rightward. But if you increase the taxes in the economy, consumption should be lower. So consumption curve will shift backwards. It will be lower. It will reduce. Okay, it depends on which diagram I'm doing. Ab thoda sochte hain. My consumption is on the y-axis. My real GDP is here. Now, if I want to go from C0 to C2, right? That means that for the same, if this is my GDP, if I go backward to this point, my GDP is reducing for the same consumer spending. But the other way of looking at it is that if I hold my GDP constant here, then from C0 to C2, my consumption is increasing for the same GDP. Dhyan se dekho. If I move from C0 to C2, I am moving from point A to point B, beta. When I move from point A to B, my consumption is increasing for the same GDP. If my consumption is increasing, there must have been a reduction in the tax. My tax rate would have reduced. That is why my consumption increased. Right? So cut in tax rate is final. So B cannot be the answer. This cannot be the answer. Now we are left up with D or A. Right? ये भी नहीं हो सकता. But between D and A, it just says cut in tax rate and decrease in tax rate. But यहाँ पे देखो, it says fixed tax increase and fixed tax cut. This cannot be answered because I don't know what is here. Although I think here also should be consumption only, but that is what we are missing, right? But I'll give you a hint. If there is consumption here, right? So beta, if you notice here, slope is unchanged. That means tax is fixed. It's a lump sum tax. It's not affecting the slope of consumption. Here, beta, slope of consumption is affected. But irrespective of that, in both cases, when I move from C0 to C2, my consumption is increasing. So tax would have reduced. So correct answer to this question should be A. Tax would have reduced because consumption is increasing. Okay, come to the next question. Thoda sa analytical tha, but it was a nice question. Okay, come to the next one. Question number 13. Over the long run, the rate of growth of real wage is approximately equal to the rate of. So we know that the real wage that laborers get, that is equivalent to their productivity. If you remember, we read this rule that W by P should be equal to MPL. So beta, if each individual gets a real wage equal to the productivity, it means that the growth of the real wage can only be affected by growth of the productivity. So answer to this question should be E. It is affected by the growth of labor productivity. Okay, come to the next question. Based on figure 2, the size of the simple multiplier is, okay, let's go to this diagram. So if we notice, my GDP is going from from 4,000 to 5,000. So change in GDP is by 1,000, right? Okay, but I haven't got the left hand side here. The left hand value is not known, so we will not be able to comment on that. Excuse me. Right. So if I have to find out the multiplier is usually change in GDP due to change in expenditure, right? But what we can do in such cases, just giving you an example, if they ask you, but something like this is not given, right? And we want to go ahead and we want to find out what the multiplier is. But one thing that you can go ahead and do is you can just go ahead and divide initial GDP at, this is equilibrium, na? Ye to full employment level hai. So what you can go ahead and do is divide initial GDP by initial expenditure. जो भी equilibrium का GDP है, you can divide that by equilibrium expenditure. In case you get, you don't know the value, right? In that case. So that can be another thing which you can go ahead and you can in fact do, right? So on that basis, if I were to go ahead and answer this question, it will be 4. Okay, so I will go ahead with the answer of 4, D. Okay, come to the next question. Based on figure 2, the economy shown is experiencing what kind of gap? So if you notice in this figure, you will notice that my equilibrium GDP is here, beta. This is my equilibrium GDP. And this here is my full employment GDP. So when I talk about the diagram, the full employment GDP, this is more than where the economy reaches equilibrium. In such cases, you have a recessionary gap. So answer will be B. Okay, come to the next question. Based on the figure 2, the MPC is. So beta, we just found out in the above question that multiplier is coming out to be 4. So we know that 1 by 1 minus C is 4. This is the value of the multiplier. So which means that 1 minus C will be 1 by 4. So C will be 1 minus 1 by 4, 3 by 4, right? And I have to give answer in terms of percentage. So I must multiply this with 100. So I will get 75%. So answer to this question will be 75%. That will be D. Okay, come to the next question. A production possibility frontier is most closely to which of the following? So you have to go ahead and talk about production possibility frontier. And it says which of the following closely relates to it. So this can be your, so this is tricky, but it is very close to your aggregate expenditure diagram. So answer to this question is, sorry, not aggregate expenditure. It is very, very close to your long run aggregate supply curve. So the production, because you're talking about how you can produce, right? And supply curve also tells you how much the economy is producing, right? So the production possibility curve is very closely related to the long run AS curve. Okay, come to the next one. Which of the following combinations of policy moves would be recommended for an economy experiencing annual inflation rate of 6% and unemployment rate of 5%? Okay, so you know, I can increase government so first point says increase government spending and increase discount rate. Second says decrease government spending and decrease reserve requirement. Third says increase income tax and sell bonds. So this should be correct. Increase income tax and sell bonds. Let me give you the reason why. When you will increase tax, then beta consumption will fall. When consumption will fall, demand will fall. When demand will fall, inflation will fall. So inflation rate in the economy is going and falling from here, right? So this ensures that you can go ahead and you can increase the tax rates in the economy. And at the same time, you will go ahead and you will sell bonds. I'll give you one more reason why this is the right option. But when you go ahead, so just think about this. My unemployment rate is low. It is 5% and inflation is high. Inflation is 6%, right? Now, I want to go ahead and give those recommendations to my economy such that, so I'm comfortable. My unemployment rate is not very high. So those kind of policy moves should be given to the economy as suggestion, such that even if unemployment rate increases a bit at the cost of reducing inflation, I should be able to do that. When I sell bonds, in return, I get money from the public. When I get money from the public, it again goes ahead and reduces money supply. When it reduces money supply, inflation reduces in the economy. So I am able to go ahead and reduce inflation from the economy by following these policies. So this should be the correct option. Better note that when tax increases, incentive to work reduces. Unemployment may increase in the economy, but I will be comfortable because unemployment is comparatively lower. So I will be comfortable trading off unemployment by reducing inflation in the economy. Come to the next question, 19th question. So this says the Keynesian monetary policy transmission mechanism would be correctly described in which of the following? Okay. Money supply increases, interest rate increases, investment increases, GDP increases. Okay, let's think about it. Better when investment has to increase, interest rate should decrease. They move in the opposite direction. So this cannot be correct. This cannot be correct. This cannot be correct. Better government and interest rate should just think about it. When government increases expenditure, that means that government is going ahead and government is doing a crowding out effect. So interest rate can go ahead and increase in the economy. Interest rate can go ahead and increase in the economy. But now if I look at the remaining options, C and D, it is saying that you are increasing the money supply in the economy. So when money supply will increase in the economy, interest rate will decrease. So increase in money supply causes decrease in interest rate. The only thing that we can make out from here is that if interest rate is lower, then both government and firms will come out to take loan. So both government, I mean, we need to make something out, right? Both government and firms will come out to take loan. Then uska crowding out effect, we will take it in the next scenario. Isme second level effect pe nahi ja rahe hain. So one thing is clear, when you increase money supply, interest rate decreases, investment increases, and GDP increases. Crowding out effect tak we are not moving. G is not given to us. So answer to this question will be C. Okay. Okay, come to the next question. Crowding out aa gaya. Ab dekho. Crowding out describes a relationship among deficit, interest rate, and private spending. Which of the following describe that relationship? So crowding out kya kehte beta? Whenever your deficit increases, that means government is doing more spending. Then in that case, government will put a pressure in the loan market. So understand this, you have a loan market. When government comes to take loans, then there is more demand of loan. So interest rate in the economy will shoot up. वही मैं ऊपर बता रही थी, but वहां G दिया ही नहीं हुआ था. G wasn't given. So interest rate in the economy will shoot up. Government will come and demand loans. Interest rate will increase. So whenever deficit increases, G increases, I also increases. It moves in the same direction. Okay. If you notice anywhere has they given in the opposite direction, usko pehle hata do. So that means that I will deduct this. They cannot move in opposite direction, and this also. Now, what is crowding out effect? That when interest rate will increase, then private spending will reduce. So they will move in the opposite direction. So wherever you see same direction, remove it. When government puts a pressure on interest rate, then private spending reduces or investment reduces. They move in opposite direction. So here it is in same direction. Ye dono. Here it is in same direction. So answer to this question will be C. C is the correct answer to this question.